No fire, no furnace, no electric blanket, and yet people slept through brutal winters without freezing. That wasn't luck. It was design. For centuries before central heating became normal, warmth at night came from a carefully engineered bed insulation layout that most people today would never recognize. It wasn't about piling on blankets. It was about trapping heat the same way animals do, the same way good shelters work, and the same way modern survival systems still function when you strip them down to basics. This wasn't comfort. It was survival engineering, hiding in plain sight. And once you understand how it worked, you'll never look at a bed the same way again. Cold houses, warm sleep. Until the early 20th century, most homes across Europe, Asia, and parts of the Americas were, well, cold by modern standards. Nighttime temperatures indoors often dropped close to outdoor levels once fires burned down. Bedrooms were rarely heated. In some regions, they weren't heated at all, ever. Yet historical records, diaries, and household manuals don't describe mass nighttime freezing. Instead, they describe a very specific approach to sleep insulation. Warmth wasn't spread across the room. It was concentrated around the body. That distinction matters. Heating a room requires constant energy. Heating a human requires strategy. People learned early that if you could trap body heat efficiently, the room could stay cold, and it wouldn't matter. The bed became the insulation system. Now, let's talk about the layered heat trap concept. You know, the old layout followed a simple but powerful principle. Heat rises, escapes upward, and, well, disappears into cold air, unless it's stopped. So, historical beds were built to slow that escape at every level. The sleeper lay on insulation, not just under it. Straw mattresses, wool-stuffed ticks, or feather beds were thick and springy, designed to prevent heat loss into the cold frame below. A wooden bed without insulation underneath was a heat sink. These mattresses blocked that loss. Above the sleeper came the real trick. Multiple layers weren't thrown on randomly. They were ordered. Closest to the body was a breathable layer that trapped warm air without holding moisture. Wool was king here. It stayed warm even when damp and didn't collapse under its own weight. Heavier layers went on top, pressing gently downward, sealing the warm air pocket without squeezing it out. This created a stable microclimate around the sleeper's body. Once warmed, it stayed warm. That pocket was the goal, not heat generation, heat retention. Why canopy beds were survival tools. Canopy beds weren't about luxury, they were about physics. A four-poster bed with curtains created a room within a room. Those curtains reduced airflow, stopped drafts, and, well, dramatically slowed heat loss. In unheated homes, drafts were deadly to warmth. Even a small breeze stripped heat away faster than thick blankets could replace it. By closing the curtains at night, sleepers reduced the volume of air they needed to warm. Instead of heating a cold bedroom, they heated a space barely larger than the bed itself. This is the same logic behind modern bivy sacks and cold-weather tents. Smaller air volume equals, well, faster warmth retention. Here's the clever part. The curtains didn't need to be thick. Wool or heavy linen was enough. What really mattered was stopping air movement. Still, air is, well, insulation. The underrated role of the bed base. Modern beds are often hollow underneath. Old beds were not. Many historical bed frames were boxed in or built low to the ground. Some even included storage chests beneath the mattress filled with linens or straw. This wasn't convenience. It was insulation mass. Cold air pools near the floor. Elevating the sleeper just enough while blocking airflow beneath prevented cold drafts from pulling heat downward. In colder regions, beds were pushed against walls or corners to reduce exposure on multiple sides. Some cultures went further. Platform beds were built directly onto masonry or earthen bases that retained heat from the day. The bed became part of the thermal mass of the house. Again, nothing accidental. Sleep clothing was part of the system. People didn't sleep naked in cold houses. But, they also didn't bundle up like they were outdoors. Nightwear was chosen to work with the insulation layout. Loose linen or wool shirts allowed warm air to circulate close to the skin without restricting blood flow. Tight clothing compresses insulation. Loose layers trap air. Nightcaps were common for a reason. A large percentage of body heat escapes from the head. Covering it stabilized the entire heat pocket under the bedding. And, cold feet were handled the same way, with dedicated sleep socks or foot warmers. This wasn't about fashion. Honestly, it was thermal management. Heat sources that didn't burn all night. In especially cold conditions, people added stored heat, not open fire. Warming pans filled with hot coals were slid between sheets before sleep, then removed. Heated stones wrapped in cloth were placed near the feet. In some regions, ceramic or metal bed warmers were sealed and designed to release heat slowly for hours. The key detail is timing. These heat sources weren't meant to keep generating warmth. They jump-started the insulation system. Once the bedding was warm, body heat took over. That's efficient. And it's safe. Why this layout worked when blankets alone failed. Stacking blankets without structure, it leads to compression. And when insulation gets compressed, it actually loses its effectiveness. Now, historical layouts avoided this problem by mixing different materials and weights. Light layers, you see, trapped air, And heavy layers, well, they sealed it in. Breathable fabrics prevented moisture buildup, which would otherwise steal heat through evaporation. The system balanced warmth, airflow, and dryness. Modern sleeping bags use the same principles, just packaged differently. The old system wasn't primitive, it was optimized. What we forgot when central heating took over. Once homes became warm by default, this knowledge faded. Beds became thinner, canopies disappeared, curtains were seen as decoration instead of tools. But in power outages, off-grid living, or cold climate survival situations, the old layout still works. It requires no electricity, no fuel, just understanding. This is why, people using historical methods can actually sleep comfortably in conditions that would leave modern homes just shivering when the heat goes out. The technology didn't disappear. The awareness did. The survival lesson hiding in plain sight. This old bed insulation layout teaches a bigger lesson about survival. Comfort doesn't always come from more energy. It comes from smarter design. By focusing on heat retention instead of heat production, people survived centuries of cold nights without modern systems. They didn't fight the environment. They worked around it. That mindset is the real inheritance. If this kind of forgotten ingenuity fascinates you, well, you're in the right place. Legacy of survival exists to uncover the techniques that kept people alive long before modern shortcuts. If you want more stories like this, grounded in history and packed with real-world lessons, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who appreciates old-school intelligence. Stay curious. There's a lot more we've forgotten than we realize.